When I first read about Jeffrey Dahmer, I couldn't believe the headlines. They called him the Milwaukee Monster. But behind those words, behind the mugshots and the flashing cameras, was something far more complicated. A man who, on the surface, seemed completely ordinary, quiet, polite, and yet hiding something that would shock the entire world. It's 1991, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, an aging apartment complex on North 25th Street with peeling paint, flickering lights, and a faint, sour smell that neighbors couldn't quite explain. For months, people complained, strange noises, constant drilling, and the unmistakable sound of a saw echoing through the night, but the landlord brushed it off. Just another tenant fixing furniture, he said. No one imagined the truth waiting behind apartment 213. That July night, a young man ran into the street, terrified, handcuffed, begging for help. Two police officers stopped him. He led them back to the apartment, and when they opened the door, they stepped into a nightmare. The air was thick, part bleach, part decay. A Polaroid camera sat on the table, a large blue drum in the corner, and a humming refrigerator, too cold, too quiet. When an officer opened it, the truth became undeniable. What they found inside changed criminal history forever, but this isn't about what they found. It's about why, because what police uncovered that night wasn't just evidence of murder. It was a window into obsession, into isolation, into a kind of loneliness so deep it warped the human mind. The world woke up to headlines that didn't seem real. Neighbors wept. Reporters crowded the street. How could someone so quiet do something like this? To answer that, we have to go back to where it all began. Before he was a name on every screen, Jeffrey Dahmer was just a boy. Born in 1960 in West Allis, Wisconsin. Shy, withdrawn, teachers described him as strange but harmless. But inside, something dark was already growing. As a child, Dahmer collected animal bones, fascinated by how they fit together. He preserved them in jars, studied them, even bleached them clean. To him, it wasn't death, it was stillness, control, a fascination with what couldn't leave. His parents' marriage crumbled, the house filled with shouting, slammed doors, and silence. And in that silence, Dahmer's mind turned inward, detached from reality, drawn toward darkness. One summer, when he was left alone in the family home for weeks, something inside him broke. And once it broke, it never mended. By his teenage years, Jeffrey Dahmer's fascination had taken form. He began to imagine controlling people, keeping them near, freezing time so they would never leave. He started drinking heavily. He watched classmates from a distance, always quiet, always detached. People thought he was shy, an awkward teen. No one saw what was happening beneath that stillness. In 1978, after graduation, his father made a chilling discovery, the first act of violence. A young hitchhiker, a conversation, a drink. Then, a moment of panic that turned fatal. That night would become the beginning of something that could no longer be undone. And then, silence. Years of it. He blended in again, went to college, joined the army, and later worked at a chocolate factory. On the surface, he was quiet, polite, hardworking, the picture of normalcy. But beneath that, the darkness waited. It never went away. He moved from state to state, Ohio, Florida, and finally back to Milwaukee. Each move an attempt to start fresh. Each one another failure. Police records show a trail of minor arrests, indecent exposure, disorderly conduct. Red flags dismissed as odd behavior. Nobody connected the dots. Nobody asked the right questions. Had someone done so, maybe lives could have been saved. In 1987, the killings began again. And this time, Dahmer had learned to hide his secrets. He targeted the lonely, the outcast, the invisible, people the world often overlooked. He chose them carefully. He made them feel safe. And when they trusted him, he acted out to him. It wasn't about rage or hate. It was about control, a desperate need to make people stay, to keep them close forever. Psychologists would later describe this as abandonment fixation, a mental loop where fear of rejection becomes obsession with possession. Over time, he built an entire world inside apartment 213, a world where no one could leave, where silence and control replaced love and connection, where loneliness turned into ritual. By the time police knocked on his door in 1991, the pattern had been perfected. 12 years of silence, 17 lives lost, and a mind completely consumed by darkness. The discovery sparked one of the most complex criminal investigations in modern U.S. history. Detectives filled entire rooms with evidence, Polaroids, journals, chemical containers. And through it all, Dahmer remained calm. He didn't fight. He didn't deny. He simply told the truth, as if he'd been waiting for someone to finally ask. He explained every detail with eerie precision. Where it began, how it evolved, why he couldn't stop. Investigators described his tone as polite, emotionless, like someone describing their morning routine. It was control, even in confession, and behind that calm voice was a man who feared one thing above all: being alone again. The trial of Jeffrey Dahmer began in January 1992. The world watched every moment. The courtroom was packed, reporters, families, onlookers, all staring at the man who had terrified a nation. Dahmer sat at the defense table in glasses and a beige shirt, calm, expressionless, unshaken. He pleaded guilty but claimed insanity. His lawyers argued that no sane person could do what he did, that he lived in a mental fog of delusion and compulsion, but prosecutors saw something else. A man who knew right from wrong, who chose his victims, concealed his crimes, and tried to control every outcome. He wasn't out of touch with reality. He was simply detached from empathy, psychiatrists argued for weeks. Was he a psychopath? A schizophrenic? Something new entirely? In the end, the jury decided he was sane, fully aware, fully responsible. 15 life sentences, 941 years, a number designed to ensure he would never leave those walls. Inside prison, he changed, or said he did. He found religion. He read the Bible. He spoke about forgiveness. Some believed him. Others to IDN, single quotes T. He told reporters, "I know what I did was unforgivable, but could forgiveness ever exist for what he had done?" In 1994, his story ended violently, beaten to death by another inmate. Some called it justice. Others called it irony. For many, it was closure. For others, another wound. Decades later, his name still haunts popular culture. Books, films, documentaries, each one searching for meaning in the madness. The 2022 Netflix series reignited the debate. Why do we keep retelling this story? Is it fascination, fear, or a need to understand the darkness we're all capable of? Because this isn't just a story about a killer. It's a story about neglect, about a society that missed every warning sign. Teachers, police, neighbors, all saw the signs but didn't act. And every silence allowed another tragedy. Music swells, slow, mournful violin. When I look back on Jeffrey Dahmer's case, I don't just see a monster. I see failure, failure to intervene, failure to listen, failure to see the quiet ones before they disappear into darkness. Maybe that's the lesson. That evil isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it lives quietly, next door, unnoticed, until it's too late. I'm Ashfaq Ali Kashif, and this was Global Crime Stories. Every week, we uncover the cases that remind us how fragile truth can be. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps keep real stories alive.